Oh.
Was that? Oh, I thought we were going to have a face-off here.
I thought exactly, but I thought you were going to do the intro and I was going to watch you do the work. Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe we were going to go back to back.
That's
like that could be our next
playoffs
cheesy
are coming.
photo.
That's our promo.
That's our next cheesy photo.
That's
welcome.
right.
Zach?
Have you not seen enough of that photo?
Like, I have.
Yeah.
You need to switch that up.
Yeah,
welcome to game 69 as we prep you for tonight's game between the Winnipeg Jets and Vancouver Canucks. We already see people in the chat talking about how they might need a nap. Get ready for another late one. You and I always, we joke about it, but we're also being a little bit serious too. That we know that the late starts can be a challenge, so we like to rest up for it. But
at least it was 8 o'clock the other night. Tonight's the 9 o'clock start.
Yeah, tonight hurts.
Yeah,
it hurts, but well worth it when you look at what the Jets have been able to do lately, and that this is a potential first-round matchup. It's game 2 of this 3-game road trip, but again, a potential look at a first-round matchup if the postseason were to start today.
That's like, well, should we show the stat? I had to fix the name on the bottom. It's just me. I do realize that. What? At least I caught it. There's the standings as we get into it. Vancouver Canucks in the final wild card spot in the West. It is a jumbled mess. Not as many teams jockeying for position as they are in the East, but so Vancouver has tied right now with St. Louis, but obviously the tiebreaker in this situation. So Vancouver would be the Winnipeg Jets' opponent should the playoffs start today. And of course, the Jets have an 11-point lead on the Dallas Stars for first place in the conference and certainly first place in the Central.
Yeah, even after that win against Dallas, Kyle Connor saying when he was asked about them having maybe a stranglehold now on first, we're never comfortable with it. So you know that this team is going to continue to push. They want to expand the lead, make things a little bit more comfortable for themselves. We have a great show coming up over the next half hour. Frankie Corrado is going to join us from TSN. Seen him on many Jets broadcasts as well as Sports Center all the time. Always love Frankie's analysis. He used to also play for the Canucks at one point, one of his stints. And then we are hoping.
I'm pretty sure Brad May is going to come through this time.
Okay.
He gave a great story.
So we are looking forward to it. So that's what you have to look forward to over the next half hour. The Jets come in.
We need you, Brad.
That's right.
We need you. We did a lot of tap dancing. Did we ever fill a lot of airtime? Then I saw it was one of our biggest shows of the year. I'm like, it was just you and me. Maybe that's the formula we need. Is just you and me. I guess.
Jets coming in having won 5 of their last 6 games, including in Seattle to kick off this road trip. An overtime winner, should I say, from Dylan Sandberg.
Yeah, big goal for him. And then he talked in the post game about how it was his first career overtime winner in the National Hockey League, but Dylan Sandberg with a great memory because he had an overtime winning goal at the World Hockey Championships and did some digging. It was May 23rd, 2023 against Sweden. Should we show them?
Sure, let's go right into it.
You tap dance while I get into this, but
I now realize while you're doing that just before you pull it up that the reason probably that you realized that your name was the only one up there is because somebody so kindly pointed it out.
Yeah.
Rich Girl 79. Why doesn't it say Sarah's name?
Yeah, Rich Girl 79.
She threw you right
all
under
the
the
time.
bus.
She's really good at that.
Fishes it off and heads to the bench. Here comes Carter Mazur. Mazur finds a little bit of room, then gets forced to the outside by Mason Raymond. Centered in front. Sandberg scores! Dylan Sandberg. Team USA wins it 4-3 and will finish first.
Dylan Sandberg.
Also of note.
Did you recognize the voice?
Yes.
Did you recognize
we weren't here before.
Anybody?
So we don't have a question of the day, but we want to see in the chat right now. Do you recognize that voice? And of
Who
course,
called that game?
If you are a Jets fan, of course you recognize that voice.
Pretty sure you know this. Everybody. Dennis Beck, thank you. Christina, you're on top. Christina, you win absolutely nothing, but thank you so much for being first.
Our admiration.
Yeah. Yes, that's hard to find nowadays. We don't admire many things. But Christina, we admire you.
One of the things that Sandberg said afterwards is I'm pretty known for my defensive game, so I've tried to build the offensive side more. I feel as on Jets broadcasts recently, we've been talking so much about Dylan Sandberg and the contributions that he's made. Obviously, a couple of games now with Luke Shen as his partner, with Neil Pionk sidelined. You and I have talked about Dylan as well, just the continued evolution of him. He has stepped right into that second pairing from really the beginning of this season, has taken over it. And if people aren't talking about him yet across the league, I see the playoffs as being much like Mark Scheifele, even when you think back to that 2018 run and
Yes.
everybody, he really, even though
Josh
everyone,
Morrissey a little bit too.
even though everyone obviously being first round picks, everyone knew about the talent that they had seen it, but there's something about when it's on display and more eyes are on you in the postseason. That's what I would anticipate for Dylan Sandberg this year.
So here's the thing with Dylan. He's a plus 32 that has him 4th in the National Hockey League, and if you think had he not blocked that shot against Steven Stamkos, the Nashville Predators, you'd have more. You'd think he'd be a little bit higher, but plus 32 at this point in the season for Dylan Sandberg. And I know we're probably driving up his price tag right now, but Chevy's at the GM meeting, so he can't blame us for that. So he'll be a little bit too busy to get mad at us.
If we get a message afterwards, we'll know that he is
Zinger
one
could
of.
be on top of this as well, but
he has 6 goals this season, 9 career goals. So I mean, obviously that offensive side of the game and has come along this year, he's been making the most of the increased minutes that he's had. 2 of his 6 goals this year have been game-winning goals, first ever in the NHL, as you mentioned, in terms of overtime winning.
Yeah.
One thing, though, of note, 1 of 3 Jets defensemen to score overtime winner this season. It's all happened since the calendar switched to 2025. Neil Pionk, Josh Morrissey, the other 2, and the Jets are the 3rd team in the league to have 3 defensemen with an overtime winner this season.
Well, just to go back
it's really an inconsequential note, but I thought I'd throw it in there.
Fun facts are always welcome to the show. You think of when Rick Bowness took over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Said wanted more offense from the defense. You've had a lot of guys, well, pretty much everybody that's on this team have had career years from an offensive standpoint. And Dylan Sandberg, another one of those latest examples. And of course, Josh Morrissey, has had a career, obviously has had his best year since Rick Bowness came in. Now Scott Arniel running the show, and of course Dylan DeMello. So offense from the defense has been very important for this team in terms of success. It's worked for them, and now everyone's taking advantage of that.
Yeah. Plus, in that Seattle game, so what did you think about it when you looked at the game overall?
First off, it was weird.
Okay.
So you're watching the early part, and I believe it was Matty Beniers who ran into Eric Comrie.
Right.
You thought nothing of it. Then you see the replay. Oh, maybe. And then the concussion spotter pulls him. So Scott Arniel talked about that afterwards. It's just like how tough it is for a goaltender coming cold.
For sure.
Connor Hellebuyck's counting on that night to be a night off, and you're wondering if Eric Comrie's okay. So then Hellebuyck allows that 1 power play goal, no fault of his own. Plays 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Back comes in Eric Comrie. Comrie gets the win. But that alone kind of think set the Jets back a little bit. And how could it not? It's just such a strange thing to happen, to lose your goaltender and have your number 1 have to go in the way it did. So I think that was a part of the Jets, I don't want to say slower start, but to be down 2-0, I think that played a role in it, the whole thing, because Comrie then comes in cold too.
Right.
So it was a strange start to the game, but the way the team battled their way back, and I think the most important thing was that late goal from Cole Perfetti on a shot from the point from Dylan Sandberg.
The roommate connection.
Yes. We've dealt with that too. And then Dylan Sandberg talking about how they've been talking about combining on a goal. There it was, and you saw the overtime winner. It was beautiful. So it was a strange game, but the way they fought back, and I saw Aristeel put it up too. How about that no-look pass from Morgan Barron? Like indirect pass off the boards right to Kyle Connor, and a beautiful finish from Kyle Connor for his team leading 36th. But the pass itself was amazing. And Morgan Barron, since they put him in that center position on the 4th line, I think is really, taking advantage of that. But I mean, obviously, just such a great pass to Kyle Connor, and just so many things happening in a low-scoring game.
Yeah,
if you think about it.
Yeah, Frankie Corrado is going to join us momentarily to talk about this game coming up tonight to help us set up, and a little bit about the West playoffs, because it is so interesting as when you look at that wild card position. But going through the chats again, first off, Eric's on board with the back-to-back for the thumbnail. Yeah. So maybe we've got to look at doing that. Hello to so many of you.
Maybe we should look more serious in that one too. So we look so happy to be doing the show.
Maybe we should look more like we're a law firm or something like that.
Right. We're just
private investigators. We're PIs.
We need more money.
Lots of people in the chat talking about that they're going to the game tonight as well, that they are watching. We've got watching, and I'm sorry I've lost where it is, but watching from Texas.
Yeah.
So great to see so many of you. And in the chat, we love to have you guys here as we get you set up. Again, game 69, the Jets 47-17-4 on the season, 22-12-0 on the road. When you look at Vancouver, just they're coming in off of a loss against Utah,
which has made that the whole race and for the last wildcard spot a lot more interesting.
Yeah, 100%. He Quinn Hughes was asked afterwards about it. He said it was a missed opportunity versus Utah. We're still in the same position we've been in, which is do or die pretty much every day. And I remember having a discussion with one of the Jets players earlier on this season when they got off to their historic start. And if you remember that despite all of the wins, it's not as if they were able to have the separation that they do now in the standings. It was tight. And one comment that was made or observation that was made was that the benefit that they hoped would be also later in the season, that if you were constantly in that must-win mode for an extended period of time, it's not only physically taxing, it's emotionally taxing and mentally taxing as well. So that when you get into the postseason, if you've had over a month of going, we have to win, that it can be another uphill battle when you get into the postseason. Yes, we've seen the teams that have had
look at the Los Angeles Kings for their first
100% that have had the success when they've to do that, but that's an anomaly. I mean, it is. That's why we always cite LA as the example.
Right, because they won the Stanley Cup.
And even when you look at Edmonton with the way that they had to win and get on the rolls, but it is exhausting if you are always having to be on that high, knowing that you don't have that wiggle room. So hopefully that's something that whoever the Jets play against will also, not that they need to find a different way to exploit team, but maybe they'll be able to take advantage of it, whomever their opponent is in the first round.
Well, before we bring in Frankie Corrado is setting things up, Connor Hellebuck versus the Western Conference this year, 29 games played. He's 22-4-2, 938 save percentage, of 166 goals against average and 6 shutouts.
My biggest takeaway from all of that?
Yeah, a lot of numbers.
Oh, it was going to be that you made notes going into
Stop it.
show.
That was supposed to be a secret between the two of us. I make notes for every show.
We all know. Yes,
prepared.
you have a much better memory than I do, but no, I
here,
usually,
Sarah.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
It's something.
You
All right.
know, I had like an awesome memory. Frankie Corrado.
Do you, Frankie?
It used to be better before the sleep deprivation.
I was going to say before the twins.
Congratulations for the twins' first birthday. You made it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was nice. I gotta say, like our Jets on TSN crew is so thoughtful. They're always so nice. They want to have like that, hometown feel to things. So that was nice of them to include the first birthday recognition.
Oh, I think it's awesome. Plus, you're going to have to show the twins when they get older. Like, look at
You're
all
on TV, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Superstars.
Yeah,
It'll go to
exactly.
their head at a young age. Trust me. Frankie, so the Jets come in off of that win against Seattle. In your mind, what's the key to building on that going into this game tonight against Vancouver?
I just think it's more of the same. It's just like consistency, which has been there for the team all season long. Like they're, I think in years past with the Jets, there's been this lull in the season where, they couldn't score goals or, just felt like things weren't coming as easy to them. And I'm not going to say that it just comes easy to them. It's just they have found that consistency. They've been quite a resilient group. And so, it hasn't felt like there's been the super highs and lows. And I think for, if you play against Vancouver, they're trying to find their game. They're in desperation mode. Elias Pettersson is starting to play a little bit better, but they're still a team that has a hard time scoring goals. Like offense doesn't come easy to them. So if you just kind of have the mentality, it's like there's going to be no freebies. We're not going to give them any ins to this game. It's going to make it hard for Vancouver. And so you kind of build your game from the back end out and really challenge them and force them to have to make mistakes.
Frankie, I think one of the worst things in the world is when a player signs a huge contract and then just struggles to put up the points the way Elias Pettersson has. How tough is that to watch? And do you think that he's starting to turn a corner here for the Vancouver Canucks?
Yeah, I think so. Like the talent is there, right? So I'm one of those people that will say like you always side with the talent and the ability, and the other stuff will take care of itself. And I think, like for Pettersson, it's been over a calendar year that it hasn't quite felt like himself. And, there's been talk in that market that, there's been a knee injury last year, that kind of hampered his training in the summer, and that led to the slow start. And like, I would always be like, because I had injuries, I'm like, the injuries lead to the mental, which leads to, not necessarily playing as well on the ice. So I just think with a guy that's that skilled and that talented, it is only a matter of time. And once everything's feeling good, he'll be able to get his game back to where it is. But at the same time, like not everyone is able to play a season at 100% health. Actually, no one is. Everyone has to play, various portions of the season at 90%, 85%. So, the league's best, they can do it and you wouldn't even know. So that's got to be part of the plan for him as well. Just kind of building his game through some adversity and not letting it drag him down to a level that is, quite below average for what he usually can be.
We were talking before you came on, Frankie, about the playoff scenarios in the West, specifically, obviously, as it relates to Winnipeg, since it looks like they will probably be facing that second wildcard spot that Vancouver is in right now. But it's such a tight race with Calgary, with Utah in there as well. How do you look at the race in the West, specifically when looking at that wildcard spot?
It should be Vancouver, just based on who they have. Like, I know Demko's, not really available, but Lankinen's been a good goalie. I just think there's more to Vancouver. I would describe them this way. They're not as good as they were last year, but they're definitely not as bad as they have been this season. They're somewhere like the truth for Vancouver lies somewhere in the middle. Coming off a year where everything went well, nothing's gone well for them this season. But if they can find like that average point, I do believe they're a step above the other teams. And Calgary's been a great story, but it feels like the wheels are falling off. Like they have a hard time generating offense, and if the game's not going to be 2-1, like they're in trouble. Utah will kind of they'll play fun hockey. Like they're willing to open up, like go trade chance for chance. And St. Louis has played really well as of late. Like that's the team that you look at and say, are they catching fire at the right time? But I still think if Vancouver plays, somewhat to their capabilities, they should be the team that sneaks in. But I think right now, like it's Vancouver, St. Louis, like just like that would be the matchup that I would think it comes right down to the wire on.
Yeah, I think that when looking at it too, St. Louis might have the easiest strength of schedule out of games remaining too. So I think interesting to see what's going to happen over these.
Another thing on St. Louis, Sarah, like look at that back end that they have. Like there's guys, 1,000-game guys, well over 1,000-game guys. Like there's a lot of veteran experience there that you can lean on. Guys that have been around and seen a lot, right? So it shouldn't. While they have a young group up front, I think like their backbone back there is well suited to kind of handle this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch down the stretch. Frankie, we appreciate the time so much. Get back to those beautiful Twins of yours. And you know what? If we've got you sometime again during this season or during the playoff run, I mean, I'm a sucker for.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for.
Yeah, hey, no problem. This is what's on our TV a lot during the day. That's Miss Rachel. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but yeah, it's a good time.
Horrible kid programming out there. Doesn't matter what generation. Some bad stuff out there. Where you're like, how are kids even smart with this stuff on TV?
Yeah.
Just be happy. I don't know if Caillou's still around. But Caillou was the worst.
I need therapy because of Caillou. Yes.
See you guys.
Thanks so much, Frankie.
Thanks, Frankie.
Bye.
Bye.
Frankie Corrado joining us, and the focus immaculate with the kids in the background.
Yes.
Couldn't even tell.
So good. Matthew just says Caillou with exclamation marks.
Yeah.
Matthew, I don't know if you're a parent, or if you watched it yourself, but yeah, Caillou was certainly it was not high on my list.
And when they like the show, that's even worse.
Yes, you aren't wrong.
Then you're trying to support them in all their dreams at that point, and you're like, I can't do this. I can't.
Yeah, within reason. Yeah, I got you on that one.
Yeah. Backyardigans. Oh.
We could go down so many different routes with that. Thanks so much to Frankie for joining us. I love the additions, even before.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Miss Rachel is brilliant. Such a huge improvement on Barney. Well, that bar is very low. So Barney was awful too. I go.
We watched a lot of them.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Guys, like, here's another one. We'll just
Okay.
Guys like bring back the classics like Popeye and Bugs Bunny. Agreed.
Yeah, we watched a lot of Dora the Explorer. Did you watch?
Not terrible.
Swipe or no swiping?
Yeah. Oh.
The map to PTSD for all of us, and I'm sure if any of you are parents that are out there right now listening to us, you have it as well. Thanks so much to Frankie as we continue to get you set up. So here's the deal with the Jets. Obviously, it's a 2-hour time change being out on the West Coast. They have an optional skate at 11:30 Pacific, so 1:30 Central. So we'll see whether or not there's any changes. I mean, Connor Hellebuck will get the start in net tonight. Or at least.
And then the line change. So Mitchell Clinton was at practice yesterday, obviously, and he said the line is no different. and same with the defense pairing. So I don't expect at this point, unless something happens, that there's going to be a big change
Yeah.
to the lineup outside of Connor Hellebuck in the starting goal.
Yeah, Winnipeg has won 5 of their last 6 games, given up just one goal in 4 out of those 5. So looking forward to this one. This is the second of 3 meetings when you look at their season series. The Jets won the first one. Kyle Connor with a hat trick. If you remember it here, the Canucks are back here at the end of the month as well. So
2:00 start.
It'll be interesting. Not
Not
that
that I was
Jamie
looking.
has that one marked
Not
on
that
the
I was looking.
calendar,
Yeah.
especially after a 9:00 start tonight.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that one. If they're still in the playoff position that they are in, then just adds to that magnitude. The Jets, of course, play in Edmonton to close off this road trip on Thursday, and then they return home for a few games, including first one up, a Sunday afternoon game, 2 p.m. against Buffalo. I love afternoon games.
Yeah, they're the best. And then you have a great, like the homestands, Washington.
Yeah.
The great chase, and of course, on that one. See, look, now people are starting to roll in here. Sailor Moon, Blues Clues.
That was a lot of that. Yes.
Brad May is here momentarily as he sets up. We're going to go through a bunch of other shows like Transformers. Yeah. Transformers, G.I. Joe, and He-Man. The best part about James, of course, you remember this with G.I. Joe, Cobra could not hit any of the main characters in G.I. Joe. There'd be like lasers flying all over the place. And I'm like, how are these guys surviving? It's because Cobra had terrible shots. Terrible shot. And then, of course, He-Man, amazing. Scooby-Doo. So anyways, let's bring in Brad May.
Brad's probably thinking, what have I agreed to come on to?
What show did I sign up for?
100%.
It is the great Brad May. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys?
We're doing great, Brad. Thanks so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
You know what? I've been fired up watching this hockey after the Four Nations Cup. Re-energized for the game. It was an amazing display. But let's get into it. Let's talk about your Winnipeg Jets and everything else.
Well, this story came along organically. We had Luke Shen on the podcast the other day, and he just brings up out of nowhere that you were his roommate his first year in Toronto. You had just got traded to Toronto. I think you're around 38 years old at the time, Brad. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I was getting
the time goes by fast.
I'll tell you what. I have really gray hair now, but it was at that time I was still dyeing it with my highlights. So,
well, you're a Stanley Cup champion, so you can do whatever you want at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I got to Toronto. Of course, I grew up just north of the city here, and late in my career, my 18th season. Pretty awesome that I was able to play that long, but to come home and play for the Toronto Maple Leafs and put that jersey on that I grew up watching was an awfully cool honor and experience. But one of the best experiences I had, though, was with Luke Shen, and I'd love to tell you the story.
Bring it on, please do. So Luke Shen told he walked up to you and he said he actually offered you. He said he had an extra room, and he was wondering if you're going to be his roommate. You could move in with him. And he literally said to me, he said, you looked at him, you went, you know what? I'll be there later this afternoon. And he said he was very taken back by that, but had the best time. So you take the story from there, my friend.
Well, the one thing, it was amazing. I had moved, of course, through the night. I got traded on the trade deadline, or not. Sorry, I got traded twice at the trade deadline. This trade from Anaheim was on my son's birthday, January 7th. I had dropped him off at school, and he turned 13 years old that day. And we were going to take him for a nice dinner, and I think I had tickets for a motocross show at Angel Stadium, whatever it was, and we were going to have a great time. And I ended up having to race around all day. I picked them up at school, and I had to fly a red eye to Toronto to Montreal to play the following day. And was in Toronto, had played 2 games on the road in Montreal and Philadelphia, and we got back to my hometown, back to Toronto, and I was in the Western Harbor Castle, and I just couldn't see myself living in a hotel for the next 4 months. And I was there for a few days, and the one morning I went in, I was drinking a coffee before practice, and I was actually telling, I want to say it was maybe Thomas Caberlet and Pavel Kabina, that I'm happy to be here. Of course, I grew up 45 minutes from the city, and it's going to be hard. My family was in California. They were going to stay because the kids were at that age, school and sports, and they didn't join me. But I was telling this story, and I said, I think I'm going to get sick of the hotel. And this 18-year-old kid walked up, after the conversation, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, listen, I have a 2-bedroom apartment. There's a bed there for you. If you don't like the hotel, why don't you come stay with me?" And I think he did that to be a real nice guy. Obviously, he has great instincts, but I don't think he actually anticipated that I was going to take him up on the offer. And it turned out to be amazing. I went back to the hotel after practice without a conversation with him. So in theory, I don't think he knew I was coming that afternoon. And I showed up to his building with about 6 bags, suitcases, and you know, suits and everything else that I had brought with me. And I didn't even know what floor he was on, what room he was in. And so I talked to the concierge, who I had to introduce myself to. And of course, he called up to Luke. I didn't even have Luke's phone number. And so Luke came down in the elevator, and he was like, "Oh, really nice seeing you, Brad. I guess come on, let's go." And we ended up spending a couple months together. I ended up moving out because his parents came out for a little bit of time to spend with their son, and I moved elsewhere about 6 weeks, 8 weeks later. But living with Luke was kind of not my first. I've always had my wife and my children with me everywhere I played, and lived at home. This was my first time being that veteran player who maybe can impart some experience and knowledge, and certainly some fun to a guy like Luke Shen. And then he gave me that youthful energy that I desperately needed, and we had a great time.
Yeah, I was gonna. Sorry.
Can I just
Yep.
play the clip from here? Here's Luke telling the story about living with you, if you don't mind, Brad. Hold on.
I love it.
Your guy's so much older than you as your roommate.
Well, he was. I mean, if you know Brad, I mean, he can talk to anyone and get along with anyone. And he was from Toronto area, so he actually had family there, which is a difference, and buddies from outside the team and hockey. So he was kind of out and about lots. But yeah, we hung out. We did dinners together. We'd go out for beers here and there. And old school guy, where he was enjoying.
So tough.
Yeah.
His hands are huge.
Yeah, he's as tough as they come, and just an unbelievable guy to be around. So yeah, I mean, looking back, I didn't envision being in this situation, but yeah, no, I remember how we handled it. And obviously that was for a short period of time too, but yeah, I think as far as I remember, his family came out a little bit and stuff like that too. You figure it out and make it work, and then we'll figure everything else out, I guess, this summer.
Okay. How does that make you feel?
Well, I wish he was a little happier that I showed up. I was under the impression he wanted me there.
Yeah.
Maybe just chose like a typical broadcaster, chose the clip that fit the context that he wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he loved having you.
Oh my gosh, he talked to us afterwards. After we talked the podcast, said you guys had so much fun. He said he was trying to make a good impression early on. You were like, no, let's go out, let's go have some fun tonight. And he just kept saying old school guy. So it sounded like you guys had the best time. So what was it therapeutic for you? You had to leave your young family. So was it nice to have someone as young as Luke to be your roommate in some ways?
I have to be honest. It was probably, and yes, I had my mom and dad up the road, and of course got to see some family and friends. And Luke did say my family did come out, and I moved into a hotel for a week when they came to visit. And but it was amazing for me because there I am. I'm 38. He's 18. I guess turning 19. Maybe he had already turned 19. But he's the youngest guy on the team, and my son had just turned 13, right? The day I got traded. So there's a 5-year difference. Of course, that's significant. And Luke's a professional, and my son's still in, I think it was either grade 8 or grade 9 at the time. And but for me, if I didn't have Luke, it would have been really lonely. I really believe that. Or I would have been, I say out and about, just trying to fill time. And of course, that idle time's the devil's workshop, right? Where you kind of maybe get distracted. Where forever, my whole experience is, after playing hockey, going to a practice, playing a game, I'm either in the car with my family or I'm going home to my family. And, all that idle time was spent, parenting in many ways. And not that I parented Luke at all.
Yeah.
But we definitely had some deep conversations, and I got to know him very well. And of course, when you spend that much time together and playing together, you're immediately friends, and you're cordial. But I got to know Luke at a different level, and I've watched his career, because mine ended the following season. Mine ended after playing in Detroit, but I've watched his career. We're still watching it, play out. He's won the Stanley Cup. He's been traded a bunch of times, very similar to me in some ways. And I'm so proud of the player that I say the player, but the character that he.
Mhm.
Oh dear.
Oh, hopefully he'll pop.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Should I take him out and bring him back in? I guess let's do that. Let's see.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll
Let's
just
see if
text
that
him
works.
back. Yeah. Anyways, we'll get back to Brad May here momentarily. Hopefully his internet or whatever the issues are. But I mean, I think the gist of the story is you're hearing right there how great it was to have Luke Shen as a roommate, especially when you have a young family back home. And their situations are very similar now because Luke comes here without his family. And
Yeah.
that was the best part of that came out of the podcast, is that Luke says the same thing. Here I am all these years later, and I've got roommates, and
Yeah.
they're not younger than him the way that is, but just how important that relationship was.
Well, and we've
Yeah.
seen it, usually we see it the other way, where the young player goes and stays with the older player and the family. This was reversed a little bit, but certainly the ability to learn from somebody like Brad May. Played over 1,000 games, obviously a
Yes.
different role
Mm-hmm.
than what Luke Shen has played throughout his. But I just think that to be able to see, like, one of the things with Brad, that if we're able to get him back, what I is quickly just that evolution of the game and just on the ice and off. Here's a guy that played over 1,000 games, but started in the early 90s. Of course, there was the famous May Day call out of Buffalo, and to 2009-10 season, it was his last. And to be able to see the way that the NHL and the league transition is really something. The evolution would have been fascinating, because you would have an old school mentality like what Brad had. And then you look at the players, and in that 09-10, you started to see those players that were changing the way that they approach things.
Well, and so even look at how great, I mean, you covered Brad for such a long time in Vancouver and
In Toronto,
And
that
Toronto.
season in Toronto.
Yeah. This guy wins the Stanley Cup, like at the time
Yeah,
that he
with
did.
Anaheim,
And it's just naturally how you're happy for people like that, because they're just good people.
Yep.
And Brad May is a good person. We've seen that already, how huge he is still in Buffalo.
Yes.
Hopefully Brad will he's popping back in here, but bring him back to the stage. Man, you look incredible. You haven't aged a bit since the last time we saw you. So welcome back to the show, Brad May, everybody.
Brad, I wanted to quickly ask you, I was just saying that, you look at the over 1,000 games that you played, but you started in the early 90s in Buffalo. You end your career in Detroit in the 09-10 season, I believe. But the evolution of the NHL athlete over that time, it's fascinating to me, the transition. How did you find that transition, being a part of it?
Well, you know what? From the start, I wouldn't have played the length of time I did end up playing. 19 years. Of course, we missed one season with the lockout, so 18 seasons. If I didn't have that quality veteran leadership and guys that actually, took me under their wing, and there's so many of them, to be honest. I ran into one last night in Toronto, Colin Patterson, who was a Stanley Cup winner with the Calgary Flames. Randy Hillier was a Stanley Cup winner with Pittsburgh, who was traded in the Pat LaFontaine trade my first season to Buffalo. Those two guys were incredible. And in so many ways, maybe because it's the Hall of Fame and the stature of the player, but Pat LaFontaine and I were roommates for 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Spent
Holy cow.
so much time together. Absolutely love Patty, and Dale Hawerchuk, being the Hall of Famer that he was. They all took a liking to me, or certainly spent time with me and taught me how to, be a better person, be a professional. And of course, it's hard to force a 19-year-old kid. I was lucky enough to make the NHL right out of junior hockey, and I had so much to learn. I mean, I was a quality kid, grew up in a nice family and certainly had great parenting. But when you're on your own in a different country, and obviously with the stature that you carry with you being in the National Hockey League, there's a lot of things that you can do wrong. There's a lot of things that, present themselves to you that are exciting and foreign. And, you need a big brother. You need a family around you. And I was lucky to have those guys. So that's how it started for me. And at the end, I really do think that my last few seasons that I did play, although I played hockey too, and I was a part of the team, a lot of it was, imparting that experience on the younger players and trying to bridge that gap. So you wear many hats when you played as long as I did. And, you have to see yourself differently. In some ways, you have to become a chameleon, adapt to the environment that you're in and around. And of course, playing in different cultures, when I say cultures, the different locker room cultures from one team to the other, you got to figure out where you fit. And every team's different. They're all at a different trajectory, whether it's going up or coming down from being successful. And yeah, I got all those experiences by conversations on the road, dinner times, on airplanes with these players that I played with. And of course, I love to socialize and talk a lot. And you know, with Luke in particular, he was he was such a big guy. I call him Baby Huey. Like,
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh, now how is that for a cliffhanger?
What's that? I know he's like his head. Oh, there,
Oh.
there he is. Welcome back, Baby Huey. Carry on.
oh yeah, so no, like he's such a big guy, but he was a kid. You
Yeah.
look at him and you think, my gosh, like not only can he fight the toughest guys in the league and obviously play at that level, but inside in his head, he's an 18, 19-year-old kid that with not a lot of life experience. And in saying that, he was so polished and he was such a smart guy. Um, he did the right thing. He wanted to be a professional. He lived and breathed hockey at that age, like I think we all do and did. Um, I was energized to be around him and being
Mhm.
part of his network and meeting his family, and of course his younger brother being a star that he became. Um, I don't know. I have a small part in Luke's
Yes.
development, and I sit back here as a spectator now, a former player, and I cheer for people. And I've
Mhm.
been cheering for him for many years, and I'm really happy for his successes.
Brad, last one before I let you go. What are the Jets getting in that dressing room with Luke Shen being added inside of it?
Well, so I know I know Luke through and as just what he's about. Number one, he's a quality guy. He
Yeah.
loves the game. He cares about his teammates. Um, he steps up and stands out for his teammates, and he's willing to do whatever it takes. And he's worn different hats in his career, from being that young player with promise in Toronto to going down to Tampa Bay a couple times, winning a Stanley Cup as an extra player at some times during his career, in and out of the lineup. Um, but being that confident guy that he is, he came back to Toronto, and the players here in Toronto, they rave about what he did and what he brought to the Toronto Maple Leafs a few years ago. Um, he's a valuable guy. At what Winnipeg gets is a quality defenseman. Talk about his play. Um, he's big and strong, maybe a little slower than, of course, the young 19-year-old would be, but
Yeah.
this guy knows what he's doing. He's been through the battles. The one thing about the playoffs is you recognize who you're going to be playing against. A lot of matchups, and I can tell you this: that there's not one player whoever Winnipeg faces, outside of maybe trying to beat Luke with speed on the outside and whatever that is, avoiding where Luke is on the ice, he's going to make it hard on the other team, and he's going to make it hard to get to the front of the net. And on a team that's so loaded defensively, and they play so well in front of Connor Hellebuck, Luke Shen, I think, adds to that piece. If anything, I think he certainly improves that piece that was already good. Um, Big, strong guy makes it difficult. That's what a player like myself, when I went into games, I was worried about the guys that were going to be confrontational. Not worried. I was aware of those guys that were confrontational and where I had to keep my head up. You know, you going into the corner with a passive defenseman, there's absolutely zero fear. And maybe I'm able to have just a little bit more poise to find, you know, the open player in the middle of the ice or whatever the play calls for. When you know you're going to get run through the boards, you play differently. You move the puck when you don't want to. You make more mistakes, and that's what Luke's going to do. And hopefully for Winnipeg, you know, it fits in seamlessly. They got the best goaltender in the world. So with that being
Mhm.
said, Luke has played in front of Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay. He knows
Not bad.
exactly. He knows what it takes, and what it takes is to keep, you know, those those high threats.
Mhm.
Keep them away from the net, and that's what he does best. He's big and strong, and he's going to make it miserable on those players. And if those players are willing to do what it takes, they're going to get hit. They possibly will get hurt, and maybe they'll get their glory because you know that's what hockey is. But I think Luke was a great pickup.
Buddy, appreciate the time. So good to see you. I'm glad you're doing well. I see you on social media all the time. It was great working with you at Sportsnet for a little bit, but we were thrilled to have you on the show here today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys, and
Thanks
good
so much,
luck to the
Brad.
Winnipeg Jets.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. Brad May. I'm telling you, best guy.
Yeah.
You know what I like there? He fought through all his career to win a Stanley Cup. He kept fighting through technical difficulties and stayed with us.
Oh, the resiliency, the
resilience.
perseverance.
Yeah, we'll throw that on his resume. But Brad, great guy, and thanks so much for joining us. And as you see, like everybody in the chat enjoyed that chat as well. So just getting to a little more about we're understanding what the person that Luke is. And another quick fun fact about Luke: after we shot the podcast, he asked me when it was going to be available, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, probably tomorrow. He's like, I just want to tell my dad.
No,
I knew you'd love that one.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker
yeah,
for stuff
yeah.
like that. You know that.
Yeah.
Quickly, it is an optional skate for the Jets. We're expecting it to happen in about 15, 20 minutes. So keep an eye out for that. There were no changes at practice yesterday, though. We are expecting Connor Hellebuck to get the start this evening. From a Canucks standpoint, no Connor Garland at morning skate. The team, so not sure about that.
No Philip Hedl.
But the team did announce today, the Canucks announced that general manager Patrick Alvin said that forward Linus Karlsson has been recalled from Abbotsford under emergency conditions. So that could play a role in their lineup up front as well.
And Kevin Lankin will get the starting goal thanks to our friend of the show, Dan Murphy.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of friends of the show, all of you, thank you so much. Great to see so many of you in the chat. We always love it. And we hope that you are going to join us again when...
A late start, but we'll get to that another time.
Thanks so much, everyone, for checking in. Have yourself a wonderful day.